What is going on, everyone? Welcome to a special deadline day transfer edition of Coffee with a Kick. I'm going to break down some huge transfers that transpired over the past few days. And deadline day, there wasn't a big splash of cash, but there were some notable loans and transfers that happened. So on August 27th, we really started with an interesting move. Arsenal ships Fabio Vieira out to FC Porto. Similar to Emile Smith Rowe being shipped out, there seems to be a sense of these fringe players, fringe starting 11 players getting shipped out of the Arsenal squad due to being unhappy. Fabio Vieira last year played a ton. He was a crucial part, especially coming off the bench for Arsenal. And we now see him move on loan. Not sure if that's a loan to buy option, but incredibly interesting move. Another move that happened on August 27th was to Arsenal, and that was Mikel Merino coming from Real Sociedad to Arsenal. I will make a note that as of Thursday's practice, Mikel Merino hurt his shoulder and is now going to be out several weeks. So that's already a big blow to that transfer. But you see Arsenal really moving the needle here, shifting midfielders out, bringing in defenders in, trying to maintain a back line that will not give up a lot of points. And then another big notable transfer was João Cancelo, moving on from Man City to go to the Saudi Arabian League to Al Hilal. Now, moving into August 28th, there weren't a ton of big moves that were noticeable, but some of the smaller teams got better. Chidozie Ogbene goes from Luton Town to Ipswich Town. And that one is an important transfer because Ogbene was actually a pretty crucial piece to Luton last year, especially in the games where they actually did well and got points. So him moving to Ipswich gives Ipswich more Premier League experience, which I think is really good for them. Several Wolves players and Brighton players moved out on loan. One big one was Hannibal Mejbri goes to Burnley in a undisclosed fee deal, a permanent transfer. Hannibal was one of those Man U players that came in, a youngster, to where it seemed like he was going to break into the team, and now he's being transferred out. A very interesting move from Eric Ten Hag. The only other point I have is Gustavo Nunes comes from Gremio to Brentford. I think that's actually a pretty decent move. He's going to be a good addition to Brentford moving forward as a depth piece. Now, August 29th is where it starts to get a little interesting. A notable name we saw transfer within Premier League teams was from Chelsea to AFC Bournemouth, and that was Kepa Arrizabalaga. And not only did Kepa get transferred, but within a 2-day span, now on August 31st, he started for Bournemouth in a victory, no doubt. So already a big move for a team like Bournemouth, getting someone with Champions League experience, Premier League title experience. Another big move out of the Premier League was Romelu Lukaku moves to Napoli for a permanent fee. I think it was around 17 or 18 million with add-ons. Chelsea, again, shipping out the old, bringing in the young, and getting some of the money back that they spent. The biggest move of the day, I believe, personally, and probably the steal of the entire transfer window, Federico Chiesa comes over from Juventus to Liverpool for only 12 million euros. Chiesa, if you guys remember, was a key catalyst in Italy's 2021 Euros victory, and he's also been one of Juventus's best players over the past 3 to 4 years. So Liverpool getting him for 12 million euros may be the steal of the entire transfer window. Now, August 30th, so many loans to choose from. A lot of inter-Premier League loans happen. And I'm going to go sequentially from when the deal sheet was submitted to the Premier League. The first one being Odsonne Edouard going from Crystal Palace to Leicester City. My thoughts on that are Edouard has been starting for Crystal Palace, even with Mateta's rise. He's still been their main striker, starting on the wing, starting at cam, starting at striker alongside Mateta. He's been in the team over and over again. So why, Crystal Palace, are you moving him to Leicester, who needed a striker, who's a fellow rival, who's trying to get points off of you? Very peculiar move, and it's going to be interesting to see how much he plays at Leicester and what that does to Crystal Palace's striking depth. The next big one in sequential order was James Ward-Prowse, who I already mentioned, going to Nottingham Forest on loan. Maybe Lopetegui thought that Ward-Prowse didn't fit into his system, but James Ward-Prowse was the best West Ham player last year. Some might argue Jared Bowen, some might argue Mikel Antonio. James Ward-Prowse was my player to watch on West Ham this season because he can score goals, he can provide assists, he's a set piece master. So why move him on the very last day of the transfer window? I'm not sure if there was a rift between the team, if there's a rift between the coach, but moving one of your star players on transfer deadline day to, again, a team who's trying to get points off of you, who's trying to be a team to stay up in the Premier League. My view on Nottingham now, I had Nottingham going out. They're in my bottom three in our Premier League prediction episode. But now, with the addition of James Ward-Prowse, I think they could even break into the top 13. That's a very significant transfer for Nottingham Forest. Just after the James Ward-Prowse loan was submitted, Matt Turner goes from Nottingham to Crystal Palace. It seems like he'll probably be the number 3 at Crystal Palace, maybe the number 2, or a solid depth piece option for Crystal Palace. Next on the list is the big name, the big shocker to me, really. And honestly, the man who is trying to complete the infinity gauntlet of big Premier League teams is Raheem Sterling. He started at Liverpool. He moves to Manchester City. He moves to Chelsea. And now he goes to their cross-London rivals in Arsenal. How he's going to fit into their system, I'm not sure yet. How he's going to start, I'm not sure yet. Arsenal have a plethora of talent in the attack. So adding Sterling, especially for the wage bill they're going to be adding him for, doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Maybe Arteta believes that they worked really well together at Man City. Sterling has that championship pedigree. I'm not sure, though, because they brought in the likes of Jesus. They brought in the likes of Zinchenko. They brought in now Sterling, who they're kind of getting Man City's rejects now, who have been a part of these champion teams. But were they the catalyst? I don't know. Seeing Sterling move over to Arsenal is one that, again, if Sterling ends up scoring against Chelsea, taking points off them, you're going to hate that loan. Sometimes there are those deals in the loans where they can't play against the team that is their host team. I'm sure that's going to be in this loan contract. But very big transfer on deadline day to see Sterling move across London to Arsenal. Another big one was Carlos Soler moving from PSG to West Ham. I won't speak much on this, but essentially this is the James Ward-Prowse replacement. I don't think he's going to be able to produce the same numbers. He's never played in the Premier League. Premier League is very different to the French League. So I think it'll be a growing pains for Soler. I keep saying there's another big one. Fabio Silva moves to Las Palmas on loan. He's been at Wolverhampton for 3 to 4 years now. He's been a young striker. Hasn't been working out. Now he's no longer going to be on the bench, but he's going to be going to getting first team playing at Las Palmas. Jeremy Sarmiento moves from Brighton to Burnley. That is a big boost for Burnley. Brighton, didn't see much use for him on the bench. Jadon Sancho moves from Man U to Chelsea. You got to think, Chelsea, similarly to Arsenal, they have a lot of young talent already on the team. They just shipped out Raheem Sterling. You offload his wage bill. You're thinking, we're going to save so much money by offloading him. And then you bring in Sancho for probably a similar wage bill, if we're being honest. I'm not sure what this transfer does for them. Sancho has not proven anything over the past several years in the Premier League. He clearly likes it over in the Bundesliga more. So very interesting transfer to be submitted just only a few hours after the Sterling deal. We'll see how it works out for them. Reece Nelson is a notable one that may help Fulham, but he's a guy who, again, the room is just a little bit too big at Arsenal as far as attacking talent. I think he'll do fine at Fulham, and I think he's got a chance to maybe get a permanent deal to Fulham if he does well. But it's been peculiar to see Fulham be kind of the Arsenal academy in the Premier League. Arsenal's just dumping players at Fulham, whether permanently or on loan, to see how they do against every other team. So Reece Nelson, I think that'll be a good move for him. An interesting one for me, as far as just experience goes, is Chris Meffam from Bournemouth goes to Sunderland. Chris Meffam has a lot of Premier League experience, whether that's been on Sheffield or on Bournemouth. And seeing him be transferred out kind of shows you Bournemouth's different opinion on experience versus just youth. So moving on, Chris Meffam was an interesting one. Not one of incredible note, but still one to mention here. Another guy with a lot of Premier League experience and starting experience, Mason Holgate, moves on to West Brom on loan. So Everton is shifting Holgate away. He's been a mainstay at Everton for 5-6 years now. So seeing him move on is rather peculiar. And I think that they need to hold on to as many defenders as they can. I think Sean Dyche will regret that one soon. He might even be recalled. A few more here as we ended the day on transfer deadline day. Maxwell Cornet moves from West Ham to Southampton. Again, a player who started a lot under David Moyes the past 2 seasons, scored some pretty crucial goals as well. Now moves on with the new manager. Like Lipotigi, I'm not sure that this is the right move. You're moving on from Ward Prowse and Maxwell Cornet, 2 guys who allowed West Ham to finish in the top 10 for the past 2 years. Lipotigi obviously wants to submit his own system, put his own mark on the team, but exiling players who have been there, who have been carrying West Ham, who are beloved by fans, I'm not sure is the right move. I think West Ham probably lost the deadline day, just loaning out these players over and over again. Moving on to another important one, Everton does get better and addresses an area of need for Armando Broja. Broja has been on Chelsea. He's started for them. He's gone on loan. Chelsea aren't really sure what to do with him, except we just want to loan him now. So he goes to Everton. I think that'll be a positive move for both Broja and Everton because Everton need goals, and Broja can at least provide some of those goals. One that I think is going to benefit a bottom feeder is Ryan Fraser moves from Newcastle United to Southampton. An important note about Ryan Fraser is 5 years ago, he was a stud at Newcastle. With the takeover, he's kind of been slowly moved off to the side. So Southampton getting an experienced winger is going to be important for them. Another one from West Ham, I'll note that it's also one that just doesn't make any sense. West Ham moves on from Nayef Aguerd, and he moves him to Real Sociedad. Aguerd has been a big part of their team. It just doesn't make sense to me. Man U get better by getting Manuel Ugarte from PSG. Ivan Toney finally moves on from Brentford. He goes to Al Ali in a £40 million deal. Brentford, excellent work here because I believe Toney, being in his last year of his contract, probably isn't going to re-sign with them. So great to get a good chunk of cash up front for him just at the deadline day. 2 Arsenal beloved players move on permanently, which, shocking to me at least, is that they move on permanently from Aaron Ramsdale, who last season was exiled off to the goalkeeper room as David Raya, the loanee, comes in and wins the Golden Glove. He's now gone to Southampton, which will be a big boost to Southampton. Eddie Nketiah moves to Crystal Palace to replace Odsonne Edouard. Again, it's a nice injection of a new player, but is the new player really going to be better than the old one who's been in the system for a little bit? We will see. And then we'll end the news by talking about one that was not shocking and one that I thought was rather shocking. Giovanni Lo Celso moves from Tottenham to Real Betis. He's been on loan at Betis before, I think 2 times now. So him moving permanently to Real Betis, not shocking. The most shocking move of the entire transfer window, for me personally, was Scott McTominay being sold by Man United over to Napoli. He's been starting for their team. He's come in and scored crucial goals. He's been a mainstay for Man U for so many years. He has embodied this new style of Man U of we're going to play gritty defense and we're not going to let you get anything on us. And whether that's worked at times, obviously their position in the table has not been great. But Scott McTominay being sold by Erik ten Hag is a statement because he is beloved by Man United fans and Erik ten Hag is trying to turn a new leaf. I don't know how that's going to work out for them because McTominay really did bail them out at the end of the last season. And even so far this season, he's been providing so many good attributes that Man United needs. So the shock of the window for me is McTominay moving to Napoli. Huge, huge win for Napoli. Man U, I think this puts them in the poor deals category. A winner of deadline day, I would have to say, is Southampton. Bringing in Ryan Fraser, bringing in Aaron Ramsdale, and being able to shore up these positions that they needed was a huge, huge plus for them. And getting Maxwell Cornet, also a pretty impressive pull. Obviously, I got to give it to Nottingham Forest, bringing in James Ward-Prowse. They'd probably take my second spot of a team who won transfer deadline day. Absolutely massive get for them. And I really do believe bringing in Ward-Prowse changes their Premier League outlook by we might get relegated to now we could actually push for 13th, 12th, or 11th. I believe he is that much of a difference maker. I'm going to have to say Everton also kind of won this just by getting Broja. I don't think letting Holgate go was necessarily the right move, but bringing in Armando Broja brings you youth, brings you someone who has proven that they can score in the Premier League, and gives you depth at the attacking position where you need it the most. Sean Dyche is a defensive wizard. I think eventually Everton will get there if they give him time. But bringing in Broha addresses a need that they needed. Another pair of transfers out that I'll talk about that came in right before the deadline ended. Also, kind of shocking, not as shocking as Scott McTominay, but peculiar. Billy Gilmore moves to Napoli as well. So Napoli now get two very well-versed midfielders to join their ranks. And then Dahoud also gets shipped from Brighton to Eintracht Frankfurt. Brighton, very peculiar transfers. Obviously, a new manager comes in, kind of like West Ham, and he wants to get his players in, get some players out. But Gilmore was kind of a breath of fresh air for Brighton at points last year and has played some actually pretty decent ball this season. I would love to hear what your shock transfers were on deadline day in the comments below. For me, again, Eddie Nketiah leaving Arsenal permanently, Scott McTominay leaving permanently. These are big transfers because these are players that are beloved by their fans, who have incredible potential, have shown that they can play well in the Premier League against big clubs, but their teams have just decided that they don't have any room for them. So it'll be interesting to see what those transfers, how they unfold. And then obviously the Jadon Sancho and the Raheem Sterling transfers, almost a like for like coming to Chelsea. And then Arsenal, where's Sterling going to fit? And then how are Man U going to handle not having Sancho as a depth piece? So those are our thoughts here at Coffee with a Kick on the deadline day. I hope that you guys are catching the Premier League action. There's already been a multitude of games that happened today. There's some more tomorrow. Check them out, and then check out our recap episode coming out this next week, as well as our predictions for maybe some international soccer. Not sure what we're going to do about that, but the Premier League is 3 match weekends in. We couldn't be more excited to be covering and giving you our thoughts, opinions, and recaps about that. So why don't you go ahead and grab some coffee, watch some soccer, and we'll see you on the other side of the weekend.